It's time for the moment you've been waiting for. Introducing the Dynasty Degens podcast.
Hello and welcome to Dynasty Degens episode 7. It's kind of crazy that we're on episode 7. I feel like we just started this podcast. It's really flying by. We're having a lot of fun. I am not with my guest JC today. Unfortunately, he is off ghost hunting in Salem right now. I think that's exactly what he said he was doing tonight, is that he had plans to go find some ghosts. So I hope he's having fun out there. He's definitely in my neck of the woods. I probably should go visit him, but I don't think I'm in the mood to ghost hunt tonight. So I'm going to pass on that. But without JC, we are joined by another member of the Dynasty Degens crew, somebody that puts in a lot of work on social media, is killing it on YouTube, is doing all types of cut-ups and really just, grinding right now and doing a lot of work for us. And he's greatly appreciated in this circle. And I'm glad that he's making his podcast debut. Without further ado, I introduce to you Nick Penikoff at Nick Penikoff on Twitter. Nick, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be on the pod. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. I think we had plans on having you with JC, and he had that trip that he kind of just got, I guess, blindsided with. I don't think he had any idea he was going. So I'm glad that you could slide in and still be on the pod tonight, and much needed, I think, because I don't think I want to go on this solo. Even though I can probably talk, I don't know if people want to hear me talking solo for an hour straight. So, but today we are going to do all things trades. We're going to get into a lot of trades that the listeners have sent in to us. We did do a post on Twitter about certain trades and recent trades. So we're going to dive into the trade market and then kind of grade these trades and talk about what side we prefer and why we prefer it. But before we get into that, I think we're going to probably talk about our favorite trade targets so far in the off season. I think it is a great time to send off those trades, to talk to certain managers and kind of figure out how your leagues value players, because everyone's valuing these players differently and everyone sees them differently. There's some people that are slow building and want young players. There's other managers that are just going for it and trying to win it all. So trying to find that trade partner is fun. And then trying to go get your guys is another great thing about fantasy, because it's hard to argue a trade when you're going to get one of your guys. I think that's what they say. Go get your guy. And one of my guys that I have been trying to grab everywhere is J.K. Dobbins. I think everyone is pretty aware of my love for J.K. Dobbins, aware of the fact that I have been trying to grab him everywhere. And now it's become a problem for me to get him, because people know, and they're just like going to give me the most ridiculous trade offers for him. They're going to, throw J.K. Dobbins for 224 first, or everything that they could probably kind of squeeze out of me. So I got to be careful about my love for J.K. because it can be easily taken advantage of. But I see him as somebody that is going to rise in value. I mentioned before about people with that type of injury needing a year's time to come back from that. So I think with that time being in a contract year, he is one of my favorite buys. And like I said, I'm trying to grab him everywhere. Nick, who do you have as somebody that you are going to grab right now that you foresee kind of boosting in value quite a bit for next year?
Yeah, a guy I really like, he's actually been getting some Twitter hype lately, is Elijah Moore. He just hasn't been unlocked in the Jets offense. Zach Wilson is Zach Wilson, and you got Mike White, who's, an average quarterback at best. And now he gets to go play in an offense with Amari Cooper and Sean Watson, and you got Nick Chubb. And I think that he's really going to take off this year finally.
Yeah, I agree. I think Watson is going to have that full year to really do all that football activity that he missed out on last year. He's going to mesh a little bit because he didn't have that chemistry with the team. You know, he was in and out of the facility last year. You know, he didn't have that full length practice time, or, you know, he was also out of football for almost a year and a half in general, between the year before and that year. So I think with that full year of football time, I think he's definitely going to boost up a little bit and resemble the Watson that we're used to seeing, I guess, for the most part. But I think we're going to dive into some trades right now and go right into the thread that we had that I just lost that I'm going to find right now. Thank God that we reposted it. There it is. So the first trade that we got thrown at is from Dak Kamish on Twitter. He said that he sent this out after the Dalvin Cook release. So I believe he sent Dalvin Cook, Deebo Samuel, and a 24 first for Kenneth Walker and Calvin Ridley. How do you think that trade fares? Like, where do you have the value on that one?
Honestly, I think it's a pretty even trade. I prefer the Ridley side, but I'm also a Falcons fan and a Ridley stan. And Deebo, outside of the 1 year where he was like top 5 in fantasy points per game, I think that was in like 2021, he's been a pretty like average wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3 for fantasy. And then you really don't know what to expect from Dalvin Cook. Like, a lot of people are saying he was washed last year, but he was pretty decent last year, from the tape that I watched. And then Kenneth Walker, I mean, what's going to happen in Seattle? We don't know. The 24 first, like, that's the asset I like the most on that Dalvin Cook and Deebo side.
Yep.
Yeah, I lean the Ridley side of that trade just slightly. How about you? Where are you at on that one?
Yeah, it's really tough because that 24 first is the make or break in that trade. You know, if that is something that's projected to be a top 5 pick or even mid, it's kind of hard to pass up on that. I do agree on the Deebo assessment where he had this 1 year where he was a hybrid, where they used him as a running back and then they were throwing passes to him, and that usage is not going to happen, especially with, you know, Christian McCaffrey in that backfield. And if they have Trey Lance as a quarterback, there's no way that they're going to be, you know, using Deebo for runs inside the 10, or, you know, he's not getting those rushing touchdowns. So I am a big Kenneth Walker fan. That is one of my guys. And I think I'll probably take Kenneth Walker and Calvin Ridley because I think Dalvin Cook is dead after this year. I think he might have like a nice, you know, return to a contender team where he's going to fall in the end zone a couple times and probably return some good fantasy value. But I think he's done as a fantasy asset. He's going to be a Zeke next year where, you know, he's probably not going to, if he does sign on a multi-year deal, he might even get cut loose next year. So I don't know. I think I'd probably have to side with the Kenneth Walker side unless that 24 first is, like I said, a top 5, you know, and then that changes the whole assessment for me. But I'll go on to the next one. The next one is from Bondin Yeet King. And he told me that he sent away Eckler. So he sent Eckler and a 25 third for Dameon Pierce, Zach Evans, Jalen Hyatt, and a 24 first. Wow, man, that feels kind of okay.
Yeah.
Hey, it does feel okay. I don't know how do you feel about that one?
I like Zach Evans. So I lean that side. But you have Eckler, who's probably going to be top 3 running back over the next like 2 to 3 years. So that's the window I like to look at Dynasty in. So it really depends on the team structure. But I'm not a huge Hyatt guy. There was a 24 first in that package.
Yeah. So there was the 24 first and Damian Pierce. Honestly, I feel like a 24 first and Damian Pierce is enough to move Eckler. Personally, I think that's probably like what I might look for if I was going the rebuild side of things as far as my team build goes. And then Jalen Hyatt and Zach Evans are ancillary pieces for the most part. I think, Hyatt is a Jag, somebody that I could deal with. I don't know. I'm just not a big Hyatt fan myself. I do love Zach Evans, but he's got a pretty high, steep hill to climb when it comes to production with that DC that he got, and that's kind of tough. So even as throwaway pieces, what do you think about Damian Pierce and a 24 first for Eckler? If you're going to rebuild.
Yeah, I like that. Is it super flex or 1 QB, did he say?
He said that it is, he put it in a different message, Dynasty Super Flex 12 team. Yeah, so it's super flex. I do like Eckler for the next 2 years. I think he's going to produce. I think he's definitely going to be that PPR monster that he has been. He might see a little decline, but his game translates to longevity. He's in the great shape, and he's pretty much just catching passes out of the backfield for the most part. So I could see it on both sides of things. But if Zach Evans hits or if Jalen Hyatt hits, that's a giant win.
Right.
So it's not bad to take on those players if you have the roster space. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate it, especially if that first ends up being early. Without the context of the first, without knowing where these land, it's kind of tough to really give a great assessment of a certain trade, because the first can be late and kind of be a dart throw, but then early, and it changes the whole scheme of the breakdown.
Yeah, I don't like trade calculators a lot, but I do like looking at them just to see how the market values assets and players. And a mid 24 first, usually if I don't know what it is, unless like the team's terrible, that's what I like to plug in. So mid 24 first and Damian Pierce has a point total of 89.89, and Austin Eckler's is 47.88 right now. So
interesting. I feel like Eckler's value is pretty low. In startups and whatnot, I see Eckler going in the fourth round. I think he goes a little later. Like not as far as like a Henry, but he definitely is sliding a little bit. And I think that is just the age factor more than anything else, where people are ageist and they do fade the running backs over age 27, and I think Eckler is 28 or close to it. I'm not sure. I think 27 or 28.
Yeah, he turned 28 on May 17th.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely, if he holds his value, he's going to probably only hold it for another 2 years. So he's not a bad sell if you are going to rebuild and break down. And in that contract, I don't think he's locked in past this year, I believe, because they restructured it. So I don't know if he's even locked in for next year. But all right, we'll move on to the next one. So the next one is from RTT Ruth 87. So Danny Cameron. This trade, I've never seen this app that they're using, so I'm going to try to break it down as best as I can here. So the Fighting Irish Hounds send David Njoku a 23 first, a 25 second, and then the 9 route gets Kenneth Walker, a 23 first, a 24 first, and a 25 first. And when he breaks this down, he said that the first on the Njoku side is Bijan, and then Walker's side ended up getting Kendre Miller. So we're talking Kenneth Walker, Kendre Miller, and 2 first for Njoku, Bijan, and a 25 second.
Ooh, I'd probably take the Bijan side there. I would.
Yeah, it's very close. So Njoku is somebody that I love this year because we did mention earlier that the Browns offense is probably going to hum. And I think Njoku is definitely primed for a breakout. So he's one of my breakout tight ends this year. He's already flashed his potential, and I think he's probably going to be one of Watson's favorite targets in the end zone. So I think there's a good chance of him having a pretty good season. He's not just a throwaway in that trade for me. So it's pretty much Walker and 2 firsts for Njoku and Bijan. So I think I would probably take the Bijan side there too. When it's all said and done, I mean, they swapped the 25 first, 106 for the 201. I don't know what the end of the 25 first class is going to look like currently. So there might not even be a huge tier break there if that's how these picks are going to break down, because they're only 6 picks apart from each other. So yeah, I'm going to take Bijan because he is the RB1 and he has insane value right now. So I think you could probably take Bijan and sell him for even more than what you just traded for him.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to skip over that one because I don't know what's going on there. So we have athletic endurance. He had sent David Montgomery and the 203 and received Mike Gesicki, Khalil Herbert, and Trey Lance. So this is a 1 QB 10-team tight end premium league. So once again, Gesicki, Khalil Herbert, and Trey Lance for David Montgomery and the 203.
I like the Lance side here, because I think, look at what Kyle Shanahan has done with guys like, Brock Purdy looked really good in the stretches last year, but it's Brock Purdy, and then look what he's done with Nick Mullins, and it's like his system is so quarterback friendly that if Trey Lance is healthy and on the field, that offense is going to explode.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I am big on Trey Lance in general. I think I would take Gesicki and Khalil Herbert. I think I would take Khalil Herbert over David Montgomery right now. Considering that they just spent that DC on Gibbs, and he is probably going to be the focal point of that running game. I think I would probably take Khalil Herbert over Montgomery, because I think at worst Khalil Herbert and Roshan have a kind of a split backfield. I think they probably have a 50-50 split, where I think Gibbs and Montgomery probably have like a 70-30 share. I think if they're, it is the Lions and they do some wacky stuff with that running game. So I'm not going to say that this is for sure, but I want to bet that Gibbs is going to get the lion's share of that backfield. So I think I would definitely take the Gesicki, Khalil Herbert, and Trey Lance side, especially in a 10-team 1 QB. I don't know. Yeah, Trey Lance could easily be a huge value there if you, like you said, they're going to start him, and I can't see him not getting a shot.
Right. And Herbert could be the RB1 for Chicago.
Could be. Yeah. So. And even with Fields being the runner that he is, the RB1 in Chicago definitely gets looks. And not going to be like the elite RB1 of some teams, but definitely a valuable asset. So I think he is getting first team reps right now. So if that continues, then he is probably locked in for that one slot. But next one we're going to do is blue and gray. So it is a 12-team non-super flex. So it's a 1 QB. Man, a lot of 1 QB leagues going on here. So 1 QB, it is Deontay Johnson for a 24 first.
Oh, that's a tough one.
It is tough because I think I responded on there where it's really dependent on that pick location. I missed that it's a 1 QB league, so that does change it a little bit. Whereas, you know, that first is not as valuable for the most part. So I'm big on Deontay Johnson. I think he's definitely a great buy right now. I don't know if I'm going to buy him for a 24 first. I think I would probably buy him for like a back end wide receiver and an early second. You know, I think I have his value at like a 201 range, 202, 201 for the most part. So I think the 24 first is a gamble, but if he knows that first is going to be late, I don't hate the trade. You know, I think it's probably going to be better than anybody you get in a 1 QB league in the late first for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. If they know that it's going to be late, I would do that too. But if there's a chance it's like a mid to early, I would rather take the gamble on the first and see what happens.
Yeah. So it's a gamble. It could work out in your favor because I think that Kenny Pickett's probably going to improve a little bit. I would hope that he proves a little bit. And Deontay's definitely the wide receiver that I want on that team. So I'm hoping he's not going to score 0 touchdowns again. It's not going to happen. So you have to imagine that he gets pay dirt a few times, and that's already going to increase his value quite a bit. But the next trade that we have is a 10-team super flex from Casey Feistel. So Casey, I believe, sends Mac Jones and gets J.K. Dobbins. So it's a 10 team, and he specifies it's a 4-point passing league. So that I would say that's a big win on the J.K. Dobbins side. You know, I like Mac Jones. I think that there's no way that he's going to be the quarterback that he was last year. You know, being a pupil of a defensive coordinator as his offensive coordinator, and you know he's not going to be stuck with Patricia calling plays for him. And I think there's no way that he's going to be as bad as he was last year. So he's somebody that I don't mind buying, but I think with the 4-point passing, it probably leans me to go the Dobbins side. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I for sure would take the Dobbins side. Even if Mac Jones like has a better year this year, like you're looking at maybe a high end QB2. And Dobbins has RB1, you know, top 5 upside in my opinion. If he's healthy and back to what he was.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so this guy sent 3 trades. So the second one that he sent over was CJ Stroud and Daniel Bellinger for Chris Olave and Darren Waller.
I like the Olave and Waller side.
Yeah. I think Olave is probably in the range of Stroud as far as value goes. I think that they pretty much cancel each other out because I think Stroud is going in the 104 range for the most part in most super flex leagues. I saw him going behind Gibbs quite a lot. So I think I would probably take the Olave side because I think Waller over Bellinger. You know, Bellinger's behind Waller currently. So Bellinger's probably only going to see value if Waller gets hurt. So I'm gonna take the Olave side on that one as well. And then the last one is, oh man, all right. So it is Brandon Ayuk, a 23 second, a 24 first, and a 24 second for JT. So Jonathan Taylor,
I feel like people are really low on Jonathan Taylor because of the season he had last year. Because if it was before this last season, there's just no way that trade would go through.
No, you would need like a couple more firsts on there,
Right.
if that was this time last year.
Yeah, I like the JT side, even after like a down year for JT. How about you?
Yeah, I do. I think Brandon Ayuk is somebody that is severely undervalued. He's somebody I was going to talk about a little later in the episode, where I think he's the wide receiver 1 on that team. We talked about Debo being a back end wide receiver 2 or a mid wide receiver 2. I think Ayuk has wide receiver 1 potential, talent wise, and his general skills, I think, are far superior to Debo. He's a true wide receiver, as opposed to Debo being a hybrid kind of a gadget guy for the most part. So I think I will still take JT, but it is closer for me than it would be. I think JT still has a couple more years of elite value. Yeah, I think it's probably either way. I think I could consider the Ayuk side. If I'm kind of punting and I'm looking for the less points on the season, I don't mind it, but I'll probably, in a compete team, I'm definitely taking JT all day. But yeah, Casey, thank you for sending all 3 of those. The next trade is from a guy in the Discord, so it's Jason Aguirre. Sorry if I butchered your name. I apologize. Aguirre. I want to say it's Aguirre. But Jason gets Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, and he sends Barkley, Dotson, and Burks. What do you think?
Oh, I like the Barkley side, but I'm a big Burks guy. And Dotson is he's a really good up and coming wide receiver as well. Barkley is interesting because it sounds like he might be doing a Le'Veon Bell holdout, which I'm pretty sure Le'Veon was the same age as Barkley is right now when he did that, and it did not work out well for him. So
no, definitely different guys though, but he similar injuries previous to the holdout too. So there is kind of an eerily similar situation there. I don't think that Barkley has to play 6 games. I don't know if he's gonna. I can't see him doing it. I don't think Barkley's DNA is built like that. He's a competitor. I think he wants to be on the field, but I get why he's doing it, because the running back landscape is awful when it comes to contracts. And I do respect him for at least taking a stand there. I don't know if it's going to result in anything, but I think it is awful what they do to running backs after their first contract. But I agree. I love Burks. I like Dotson too. I like that whole offense that Washington has. I think that whole offense is a buy because these guys produce with who do they have? Heineke throwing to them last year. Burks and Terry are 2 guys that I love buying right now. But Olave and Waddle are in that second tier for me. It's tough, man. I think it's a fair trade for the most part, but I think the value is probably on the Barkley side because those wide receivers can really only go up in value from here. So I think Dotson and Burks, if they produce, they're going to be pretty high up the value chart from where they are right now. So
for sure,
it's it is Waddle. I'm not going to fault anybody for whatever side they take on this trade because I think it's a win-win for anybody's build.
I think it's a really even trade. Burks was my wide receiver 1 last year. So that's why I like the Barkley side just because Burks is one of my guys. But yeah, like you said, I wouldn't fault anyone for either side of this. It's an even trade straight up.
Yeah, see, Burks is one of my guys too. He's someone that I was really in on last year. I had him as my wide receiver 2 of the class, and Tennessee just used him like, what were they doing, man? I don't understand his usage at all. They traded AJB, they drafted Burks, and they tried to make Burks AJB. Like he didn't get any carries. He wasn't getting the little dump offs and his bread and butter that he pretty much made all his money on in college. He's a yak monster. He's someone that is like a bigger Debo, and he wasn't getting that usage at all. They were having him line up on the outside a lot, and I think he was just generally uncomfortable last year. So they have to use him properly, and I want to see that. I hope that they're smart enough to do that. I don't know if they have the offense to do that though. So it's tough. That I love this guy so much, but I don't know if he's ever going to get the usage that he needs to be a fantasy asset.
For sure. And then I think they have a new offensive coordinator this year, don't they? Let me see.
I want to say yes, but
yeah, it looks like he was the passing game coordinator last year for the Titans, though. So
yeah. I mean, I think if they kind of fade out Henry a little bit and they mix in some different plays there, but I don't think Burks has the usage that he needs if Henry's going to, run the rock 20, 25 times a game. So unless they kind of tone that down a little bit, but their offense is so, you just know what's coming, and until people can stop it, they're not going to stop doing that. They're not going to stop running Henry down the middle for 7 yards, 8 yards every play. It's just not going to happen. But I want to say that if Tannehill has a bounce back year, Burks is definitely a good buy, but he's risky for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
The next trade that we're going to go over is from Gump 7285. And it looks like Gump sent away Roshan and a 24 first and received Higgins. That is very easily Higgins for me. So I don't know how you feel, but I do like Roshan. But if Khalil Herbert is going to be the running back one of that team, Roshan might not have that value that we expect him to have coming out the gate. I think that's an easy Higgins for me. I'm not insanely high on Higgins, but he definitely is borderline top 12 for me in Dynasty. So yeah, I gotta go Higgins there. What about you?
Yeah, I like the Higgins too. He was wide receiver 11, I believe, in fantasy points per game last year. So I mean, Higgins, you have wide receiver 1, high and wide receiver 2 upside with him. Roshan, I liked his tape a lot, but it could be like a 3-headed monster for Chicago in that RB room this year. The 24 first is enticing, but yeah, I like Higgins here as well.
Yeah, I like these 24 first. Like these are always the most valuable pieces in all these trades that we're seeing because they are going to only go up in value. And it's a great time to buy them because I think they're definitely, I think a lot of people aren't as close to Devy or as close to college football as maybe some of us, and they're not too familiar with the class coming. So it's not a bad time to grab these first, but I'm always wary of trading away studs for unproven assets because that is tough. Even if you're in a rebuild, the wide receivers hold the value. I don't mind selling like the JTs or the Barkleys. That's okay because their window is going to close a lot sooner than a Higgins or an Olave or even Burks for that matter, because they're going to hold the value for the next 10 years, barring injury. And JT and Barkley are going to be there for maybe 2, maybe. That's kind of up in the air. So It's tough, but if you can go get some first right now without trading away, these elite wide receivers, I definitely suggest you go do it. Here's another one. So somebody has rookie fever in this league, but so this is the same guy, Gump. Gump sends away Mingo and Rice and receives Debo Samuel. I don't know. I guess it depends on what you think the Kansas City offense is going to do this year, and who's going to be the person to lead that team. Because I think the perception reception of Tony just dropped yesterday, and it's awful. It is so bad. I don't know. Did you see that? He's just it was so real bad, man. I mean, I know that he's been unhealthy most of his career, but he's not somebody that I'm gonna bank on being the wide receiver one of that team. I think it's wide open for anybody to kind of take that role. What do you think of that trade? Because I like we said, we're both out on Debo for the most part, on his current value at least.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Mingo could end up being the wide receiver one there. And then Rashee Rice is an intriguing prospect. He had 36 15-plus yards last season, and we know that Mahomes has an absolute cannon on him. So I really like the pairing of Rashee Rice with Mahomes. So I like the package here. Give me the rookies.
Yeah, it's tough to value these guys right now. But as it stands, projection-wise, these two rookies probably are going to be close to the top of the receiving cores of their team right now. Mingo is, I mean, who's Mingo kind of battling against right now? Is it who's on that team? DJ Shark and
like 33-year-old Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I mean Thielen is a good value. I think that's pretty much their whole wide receiver room, though. Is Mingo, Thielen, Shark. Yeah, I'll probably take Mingo there. I think he's definitely a lot higher than I would take him. I see him going rookie drafts like 201 to 112 area, and that's a little too rich for me. But it's a good reroll on Debo. Considering Debo, I think his ceiling is wide receiver 2, especially with Ayuk kind of, blossoming into the wide receiver 1 on that team. Debo is a little overvalued for my taste right now, so I don't mind that package either.
Yeah, I think it was Dave Klug who said on Twitter that the Debo Samuel role is now the Christian McCaffrey role. So unless something happens to Christian McCaffrey, Debo is basically just a wide receiver. So yeah,
and he's not a bad wide receiver, but if you blend in together the fact that he's not going to get any rushing opportunity, and also he does have a little bit of an injury history, he gets banged up and he doesn't play through it. He plays a little reckless for the most part. So he's a tough sell for me in that offense. We talked about Christian McCaffrey, we talked about Ayuk. Kittle is always going to get his too. So it's tough. I don't see him consistently putting up the numbers that you need for his like 5th round ADP right now. I think he's going in a range that I'm not in on for the most part. But we have one more from Gump, which feels a lot closer for me. So he's receiving Amon-Ra St. Brown and Trey McBride, and he traded away Kyle Pitts. So, yeah. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I like the Pitts side. Call me a homer because I'm a Falcons fan. But...
Oh, my goodness. Really? So Amon-Ra St. Brown and Trey McBride? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead with the Pitts.
I'm not very high on McBride. He averaged 2.6 fantasy points per game last year. And I mean, I don't know how much time Kyler's going to miss because he's on the Cardinals still, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to be the one. I believe Zach Ertz is not going to start the season. I don't see Zach Ertz even being on that team. I don't know what his contract breakdown is, but I don't. They're probably going to just throw him on the pup if I had to guess. So I think Trey McBride is probably going to be the starting tight end for that team. But like you said, I don't know what he's going to be without Kyler. Can Colt McCoy really, is he going to be the guy? Is Tune going to be the guy? I don't know where they're going to go with that. But I don't see any reason why they would rush Kyler back with this roster. It's not a compete team, and they're not going to go anywhere. There's no reason to bring him back and try to go for it with Kyler and Hollywood Brown. With that team right now is not going to go anywhere. So why would they bring Kyler back? I can't see it happening.
For sure. But here's a fun question for you. If the Cardinals are drafting first overall next year, do they take Caleb Williams and trade Kyler?
I think you have to take Caleb. I think they value Kyler, but I don't think he's who they thought he was going to be career-wise at this point. I think they had drafted Kyler thinking he was going to be a franchise-altering quarterback, and he has been elite. I think as a whole, he's been good, but he hasn't really won a lot of games when they needed him to. He's never really taken over a game. As a whole, I think he's been a little bit of a disappointment, and they won't admit that. But I think if they have the chance to get Caleb, they're going to take Caleb. And I believe that Kyler will be on a different team next year. I can't see it. I think there's already some bad blood there. And I'm just kind of spitballing this at this point. But, Hopkins wanted out of there. The team feels like it's a mess right now, and I don't know if they want to just hit the restart button there. I wouldn't blame them for that. If they're going to kind of throw away this year, they're going to hit the restart button for sure. So I think a fresh start for Kyler would actually be beneficial for him, getting out of there and having a new team. But who knows? This trade, I think I would probably take the Amon-Ra St. Brown side. I don't know. I love Pitts. I think he's a unicorn. But, man, your Falcons, they have Bijan, London, and Pitts. And they have Ritter throwing them the ball. So I'm glad we got into this a little bit. Do you think that Ritter is going to provide the volume for all three of these guys to be a wide receiver 1, a tight end 1, and a running back 1?
Yeah. His pass attempts per game, I think they went up 5 more attempts per game from when Mariota was started to when Ritter took over. And I think he's going to be right around 30 passing attempts per game. So for London to be wide receiver 1, I think that, and Pitts to be a tight end 1, I think Pitts is going to have to catch 9 or 10 touchdowns. And I don't know, Ritter, I liked his tape coming out, but I wasn't super high on him just because of how inconsistent he was. He would throw a 40-yard dime, and next play he'd miss a 10-yard slant high. So it'll be really interesting to see if he can be more consistent this year. It's really intriguing. The Falcons' defense looks good on paper, the offense looks good on paper, but the wild card is Ritter. So if Ritter can be consistent, I think the offense can be humming. A lot of people are down on Arthur Smith, but the Falcons were 15th in points per game last year, and they were first overall in rushing. With I think Algier was a 4th or 5th round pick. So Arthur Smith is better than the haters think he is.
Yeah, I wish we could insert an Arthur Smith GIF right now for you. If you go on Twitter, that's Nick's go-to for the most part.
It really is.
Yeah. So we'll probably do a couple more here. So we have the FF Dynasty Degen. So a fitting name. He sends Madison and Tajay Spears for his own 24 first back. And I believe that is Superflex. Yeah, so I believe 12-team Superflex league.
Yeah, that's the first rounder for me. I actually saw Madison trade in one of my leagues for it involved a first rounder as well. It was Madison for Cole Kmet, 24 first and 24 second. And I think that Madison is okay as a running back. Like, I would not be trading away a 24 first for him. So
No, I wouldn't either. I actually, I do have a crew of people that usually send me trades. My high school buddies and guys that know I'm kind of locked in on fantasy football from my hometown. And today, my buddy sent Madison for a 24 first and a 24 second. So Madison is a massive sell right now. And Madison is not Dalvin Cook. And I think the community thinks that Madison is going to be Dalvin Cook. He will get the volume. He'll probably get a 15 carry game here and there. But the Vikings are not a run first offense anymore. They haven't been a run first offense for the last couple of years. Ever since JJ entered, they are throwing the ball, and they're throwing the ball a lot. And then you insert Addison to this team, and I don't know how many runs they're going to have. He's probably going to get, like I said, 12 carries a game. I think that's probably where he's going to live in and I think Madison needs a lot more than that to produce fantasy wise. I think Madison needs to be like a 20 carry kind of guy because he needs volume. He's not a super efficient runner. He's not fast. I don't know, because I think when he filled in on a different offense than we have now, because they have Hawk, they have Addison, and they have JJ. Why wouldn't you throw the ball a bunch? You have three very, very good weapons. And I think Addison is profiled as one of my breakouts. Well, one of my big time rookie players. I think he's going to be the Olave of this class, rookie season wise, where I think he's going to get a lot of volume, and he's probably going to be a high end wide receiver too this year. So, man, Madison is a big time sell. I don't even know if he's going to be the starter, over Dwayne McBride and Ty Chandler. I mean, he will, but they're going to probably mix him in a lot. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to even be like considered the starter. I think he'll probably be like in a joint committee for the most part.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then if you look at the Vikings defense, they lost Eric Kendricks. They lost Patrick Peterson. I feel like they lost another like big name guy, and they might end up trading Danielle Hunter. So it's like that defense is going to be rough this year. So they're going to have to throw the ball a lot.
They're going to throw a lot, and they're going to give up a lot of points. They've been giving up a lot. They were giving up a lot of points last year with those guys. So I don't know. It's bad roster construction. I think they keep adding to the offense and they keep taking away from the defense. And I don't know when that's ever resulted in great success. But I don't know. Maybe they can score, 40 points a game, and Madison falls into the end zone a couple times. But I think he'll have some big games. But I don't think he's going to be what people expect him to be. Because right now people are valuing him as a wide receiver or a running back one. They're thinking he's a rock solid RB1.
Yeah, and I did not realize the Vikings defense was as bad as it was last year. They allowed 25.4 points per game, and that was that ranked, 30th in the league last year.
Yeah. So they're probably going to be like 32nd this year. Like they're going to be pretty bad because they didn't really improve much there, and they've taken away from key positions. So yeah, go sell Madison. I guess everyone's selling Madison right now, so maybe hold him for a little while until the market kind of levels off a little bit. But I'm seeing some crazy packages for Madison. So any 24 first, I'd probably take for him.
Absolutely.
You know, I saw him traded for Pollard on Twitter. I saw him traded. So it was Madison in the 24 second for Hawkinson in a tight end premium league. I saw him traded for Goddard straight up in a tight end premium league. So I'm seeing him going for startup fourth rounders, fifth rounders. That's crazy because he's probably a 13th, 14th rounder this year at best. So that's crazy value that you're getting right now for a guy that is probably going to be a back end wide running back too, at best, I think.
For sure. Yeah.
But here is, I think, the last one that we're going to do. So DJ Marty XTV sends, oh, this is an ugly one. This is one with Madison. So this is a IDP league. I'm not insanely tuned into IDP leagues, but I do have one. So I know these guys. So we have Baker Mayfield, Damian Harris, and Alexander Madison for Kenneth Walker and Chris Jones. Yeah, that's an easy Chris Jones side. So Kenneth Walker, Chris Jones. Although Chris Jones is holding out right now, I believe he is waiting to get paid, and he is not at minicamp right now. So I have no idea. Usually those things get resolved, but that's kind of alarming a little bit. I'm wondering if I could find some news on him. Yeah, so Chris Jones is holding out. He is somebody that had a great year last year. And he's only 28 years old. I think yeah. And then Kenneth Walker on top. I probably wouldn't trade Kenneth Walker for all three of those pieces together. So Damian Harris, Alexander Madison, and Baker Mayfield for Kenneth Walker and Chris Jones. So Chris Jones is not a bum. He is definitely like I want to say he's like a top 5 DB right now. So that, like I said, I don't know if I would trade Kenneth Walker for that whole package, but that is a testament to where Madison is right now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, you're probably going to get one more season out of him. The Bucs will probably be in that May Williams territory next year. And then Damian Harris, I'm a James Cook guy, so I don't like Damian Harris that much this year. And then, oh man, that is a really interesting trade. But yeah, I like the Kenneth Walker side too. I guess it really depends on how you value Damian Harris, because Baker Mayfield just feels like a throw-in in that trade.
Yeah, that whole situation is very messy. That's also a possible Caleb landing spot there, because I think that team is going to be a mess. And I don't know who's throwing the ball. Is it Kyle Trask? Is it Baker Mayfield? I don't know, man. Either way. Yeah, although Baker had that one game last year with the Rams that he just it was prime time and he was a monster, dude. He was just like prime Brady, like all of a sudden just like throwing for like 300 yards and like sideline grabs and, bombing it to the end zone. And oh man, that was just like such an electric moment. That was like a Super Bowl. That was like the best game that Baker Mayfield's ever had. That was insane.
Yeah, that was wild.
that was definitely one of my favorite points of the season last year. Baker Mayfield like coming off the bus and just like having, a Tom Brady type of primetime moment there. But yeah, I think all in all, even after that awesome game that he had, he's a jag. He's a bum. He is not somebody that I'm gonna name a franchise starting quarterback. Um, I think he's a great backup in the NFL. I think maybe he could jump in if somebody gets injured, but I think you're in good hands if you're relying on Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield to lead your QB room.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of alarming, but we'll see. We talked about Devi last week, and we talked about our top QBs, and QB3 is definitely up in the air as far as Devi goes, but you know, you're going to get 2 solid QBs minimum next year. I think there's probably going to more likely be 4 solid QBs next year. So I think a lot of teams, it just felt like there was a lot of QBs coming this year that there's no way that teams are going to need quarterbacks for next year. But we've already mentioned, you know, maybe the Cardinals, definitely the Bucks. I think they really didn't expect Brady to blindside them like that. But I don't know. Not to have a backup plan with a 46-year-old quarterback is pretty silly.
For real.
But whatever. I'm still buying Godwin everywhere. I think we were going to segue into our favorite trade targets, and Godwin's somebody that I think is QB safe, somebody that I think could produce with Trask, Baker Mayfield, John, was it Wolford that they have over there? Yeah. I think he's safe because he is a PPR monster. So he's one of my favorite targets. You want to drop one of your favorite targets, and then we'll kind of run through it. I didn't even give you an introduction either. So I didn't even introduce you. I just went right into it because I was so excited to get the trade targets and just jumping into it. But you're going to be on the pod a bunch of times, so I feel like it is what it is. You're more so floating for JC right now. So
for sure.
Yeah. Who's somebody that you want to end the pod with that you really think is a steal? So I know we went to trade target steals, but who's a guy that you think that you could get for a lot less than that they're valued? Like, as far as, you know, if you're going to trade for a player, who's not valued where they should be?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2. The first one is, we talked about him briefly, Desmond Ridder, just because he's so cheap right now. And the upside is, I think it could be really high. If he can put it all together, that is. Like accuracy, it could be an issue. But if he cleans up the footwork, I think he could be really good, especially in an Arthur Smith offense. But a guy I love right now, and I've traded for him in at least one league. I can't remember if I did it or in 2 or just 1. But Javonte Williams, especially in a Sean Payton offense, he could get off to a slow start like Dobbins did. But recovery-wise, he is recovering a little faster than Dobbins did last year. And this time last year, he was like a top 5 dynasty running back for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And now, like, people, I don't even know if they still have them in their top 12. So he's a guy that I'm targeting everywhere that I can, just because of the upside, the talent that he is. He's a tackle breaking machine. He can catch the ball. He's a good rusher. And we know Sean Payton likes to target his running backs. So if he gets back to what he was, I think he can be very, very good.
Yeah, I agree. So you being a Atlanta guy and then also in on Javonte, a deal that I made about maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So I sent Javonte and a 25 first for Pitts. Where are you going to go on that side? Like, which side are you going for?
Ooh, I like that. I like that for both sides. I like Pitts just because looking at Pitt's upside, like I think Pitts could just crush it this year. Like if Mariota could hit the broadside of a barn, Pitts would have had like 800 or 900 yards and another like 3 or 4 touchdowns last year. And he had the knee injury as well. So he missed, I think it was like 5 games. So I like Pitts there. You got Pitts in that one?
I got Pitts, yeah. So I'm pretty stacked at running back. I had Rom, Kenneth Walker, and Dobbins in that league, and then I was starting I think Dolch at the time, so it just made sense. And I don't know, I think I'm competing, so that 25 first feels late, but anything can happen in 2 years' time. But we'll see.
For sure.
But to close out, since I didn't give you an intro, I'm hoping that you can just dive into what you're doing with the Dynasty Degens podcast, exactly what you're doing behind the scenes, what you have going on YouTube. I know you're working like crazy. You're getting everything kind of going social media. You're putting in a lot of work, man. Like I said, I appreciate the hell out of you. I'm loving what you're doing, and I just want you to kind of go into depth about exactly what it is that you have going on.
Yeah, thanks, man. Really, I'm just trying to build the brand right now. If you aren't subscribed on YouTube, you should definitely do that because we have, I think, like 35 cut-ups now of prospects, and I'm just going to keep cranking them out. And if you haven't watched a cut-up before, it's anywhere from 2 to 8 minute clip of every play of the player from full game. And on social, we're really just trying to push our content and get our name out there. And I'm excited to continue to do that because we have a really awesome team that's doing a lot of great content. You guys are doing awesome on this podcast. So I'm just really stoked to be a part of the team, man.
Yeah, we're really stoked to have you. And I'm really stoked that you jumped on tonight. Filled in admirably for JC. And, I think that it's probably going to be a regular guest over here. I'm hoping. But next week, we do have Brandon Lejeune on. So he's somebody that I love tape-wise. He's going to break down a lot of Devi tape and upcoming prospect tape. And I'm really just curious to see his process because before I started watching tape, he's someone that I watched. I watched his tape breakdown and really studied how he broke down everything because, he does it in a great way. And he's going to be a fun guest to have on next week. But as always, I appreciate you guys joining, and we'll see you next week.